So I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying that doesn't make it acceptable. It's still illegal. And if Julian Assange was wrong, he'd be writing about it in his WikiLeaks. Well, it's everything to do with certain order.
Free Assange.
Thank you. Can we get another one?
Yeah. I'll give you more. How many do you want? Oh, just one more. Okay. You got another one? Yeah. Here we go.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Recent negotiations are getting somewhere.
The ABC had a news panel discussion the other day, and their Foreign Affairs editor, John Lyons, appeared on a panel discussion and confidently stated that he believed that Julian Assange would be released in the next 2 months. He also said that he believed that our Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, was working hard behind the scenes in what he described as quiet diplomacy, and that this ultimately would lead in the next 2 months to the release of Julian Assange. A lot of Assange supporters believe that what John Lyons said was the truth. But during that interview, or during that discussion on Julian's state of affairs, there were 5 misleading mistruths put forward, including comparing Julian Assange to Chelsea Manning. And he went on to say that Chelsea Manning was pardoned, therefore why not pardon Julian Assange? It sounded perfectly reasonable until one analysed the actual facts of the release of Chelsea Manning. Chelsea Manning was tried and convicted and served 6.5 years of brutal incarceration under what are known as special administrative measures. And then finally, after 6.5 years, and by the way, I think what triggered Obama to act at the end of his presidency was the fact that Chelsea Manning could no longer take this brutal incarceration, and she attempted to take her life. Barack Obama then commuted her sentence. He didn't pardon her, he commuted her sentence. There's an enormous difference between a pardon and a commuting of a sentence. That difference is a pardon is saying, we've changed our mind, we don't believe you did it, we're letting you go. We're dropping the charge. Whereas commuting a sentence is like a parole. It's like saying, we think you've been punished enough, so we'll let you go now. Now, this sounds like a very innocent mistake on face value. Oh, well, you know, he's made a mistake. It wasn't a pardon, it was commuting a sentence. But what he's doing is misleading people, because he's comparing a convicted felon with an innocent man. And an innocent man doesn't have to be pardoned or have his sentence commuted, because he hasn't committed a crime, he hasn't been charged with that crime, he hasn't been found guilty of that crime, he isn't serving a sentence for that crime, he is an innocent man. There's a lot of difference between an innocent man and a convicted felon who's served 6.5 years of brutal incarceration. He then went on to speak about Julian Assange's health, and he mentioned that Julian had suffered a mini stroke in 2021, and that since then his health had deteriorated. Well, the truth of the matter is that before and up to that mini stroke, there were many reports about Julian's health, and they included reports from professional psychologists who, with Niels Meltzer, the then rapporteur, United Nations rapporteur on torture, visited Julian in jail and assessed that, in fact, the 14 years of psychological torture that he has suffered has caused mental health problems. And we know at that stage he had physical health problems because he had a mini stroke. But since October 2021, there have been no health reports on Julian's physical or mental health. None. Zero. So how does John Lyons know that his health has deteriorated? It is John Lyons' opinion. And again, you might say, well, it's a logical opinion. He's in maximum security. Of course he's going downhill. That may well be the case, but it's not a provable fact. It is an opinion based on assumptions. Again, not the truth. Then he went on to talk about how if Anthony Albanese picked up the phone and spoke to Joe Biden, he could have this matter brought to an end. But he said that, quote, Biden would barely know his name. I'll repeat. John Lyons said Biden would barely know his name. I mean, in 2010, Joe Biden, when he was Vice President under Barack Obama, whilst Barack Obama was trying to indict Julian under espionage laws, that's in 2010. Joe Biden stated publicly that Julian Assange is a high-tech terrorist and a threat to the United States of America. Then in 2016, Julian Assange released the emails whereby the skullduggery of Hillary Clinton was exposed to the world. And now Joe Biden, a Democrat, one of Hillary Clinton's mob, in 2019 went to stand for president, and he said during that campaign unequivocally that Julian Assange is a threat to the United States of America and he needs to be brought to justice. And yet John Lyons is trying to convince us that this matter is so trivial that Joe Biden would not know the name Julian Assange. What utter hogwash. What propaganda is the ABC up to? They're trying to build the hopes of Assange supporters. I shall, sir, and you too. Then John Lyons went on to say, whether Julian Assange is a journalist or not, blah, blah, blah. Again, throwing doubt into the credentials of one of the best journalists on the face of this earth. A man who was made an honorary member of the MEAA, the Journalists' Union in Australia, in 2010. He was made an honorary member. He then went on in 2011 to win an Australian Gold Walkley Award, the highest journalism award in Australia. In 2011, Julian Assange won a Gold Walkley Award for his and WikiLeaks' contribution to journalism. Since then, he's won dozens and dozens and dozens of international awards. And yet John Lyons, who purports to be a member of the Fourth Estate, is throwing that into question. What utter hogwash. Propaganda with a capital P. But there's more. Because then one of the panelists asked John Lyons, will he have to serve out his sentence in Australia? John Lyons went on to say, oh no, he won't have to serve out his sentence in Australia. Before one serves out a sentence, one must be charged with a crime, face a jury of 12 of your peers and be found guilty beyond reasonable doubt of that crime, sentenced, and then you can return to Australia and serve out that sentence. But none of that's happened. Julian Assange remains, after 12 years of arbitrary detention, an innocent man on remand, being denied his legal rights under habeas corpus and being treated and talked about by our national broadcaster as a guilty, convicted felon. What utter balderdash. Propaganda in capital letters. over and over, and this is all in 2 minutes, folks. 5 pork pies in 2 minutes. That's averaging about 1 every 20 seconds. I mean, it just spews out of the ABC like it's a sewer with a broken valve. Folks, really, wake up, stop listening to all mainstream media, including the ABC. It is the most corrupted media in Australia. It makes the commercial media look kind of reasonable because their lies are so openly driven by commercial interests we can all see through them without looking. Whereas the ABC do this sort of con job where they mix truth with lies. They give you something that looks palatable, but it's really hiding a deceptive agenda. Disgusting. We need to look at the way the ABC is funded. The fact that the politicians, the corrupt politicians, dole out our tax money to our national broadcaster and manipulate them and use them as their propaganda arm must be changed. We need a new model of funding for the ABC so that this can no longer continue. Thank you. Welcome to the 163rd week of Julian Assange Sydney Town Hall gatherings. This is the first Julian Assange gathering of 2023. We gathered here to make the truth known first in 2019, then in 2020, 2021 and 2022. And we are still here in 2023. We have no alternative but to be persistent. When governments around the world try to keep important information quiet, it is inevitable that those who speak the truth will be persistent. Rain, hail, or shine, we speak the truth. And here we are in the rain speaking the truth. Julian remains silenced in Belmarsh prison, but a growing number of people have learned that our governments operate on the basis of a steady stream of lies and propaganda pushed out through the established corporate media, and in our case, the ABC, the Australian Broadcasting Commission. And we've seen a prime example of this in the last week with the op-ed by John Lyons. Despite these incessant lies, truth can never be completely suppressed. The nature of humanity means that important truth can never be suppressed. Julian Assange Sydney Town Hall gatherings are evidence of truth finding its way out into the light. Despite a multitude of measures used to hinder the surfacing of important truthful information, people keep passing it on to others. All the propaganda, psychological operations and artificial intelligence used by those with power and resources can never stop the spread of truth. All it can do is slow it down. We gather at Sydney Town Hall every Friday at 5 p.m. to assist the spread of truth, because the spreading of truth helps us all. we are happy to know that we are helping the truth get out to more and more people. In this way, truth is winning. Julian Assange is winning. And we are winning. Propaganda and psychological operations exist for the purpose of control. We are lied into war. We are fooled into division over our skin colour, our choices, or our personal beliefs. We are intimidated into compliance and apathy. Media focus on unimportant matters to get us to ignore the important things like democracy and freedom of speech. We must recognise that those who own the media hold positions of great power because they use the media as instruments of control. We must recognise that the information appearing in the media has the potential to control how we think and what we do. We must realise that those who own the media gain a benefit from the information the media puts out, and that their purpose for owning the media is not to benefit us. The media may carry information that pleases us, but that isn't the same thing as benefiting us. People wouldn't watch the media if the media wasn't a source of entertainment. The media attracts people with items that bring pleasure, so that people can be distracted and deceived. It would be good if the media would encourage people to stand up for Julian Assange, but that isn't going to happen. After more than 12 years of Julian's arbitrary detention, it is clear no one in the mainstream media will report that Julian is in arbitrary detention or that he is completely innocent. We must drop any trust we may have in the mainstream media. We must look at the evidence and evaluate it for ourselves. Critical thinking is critical. Julian Assange is completely innocent. We must never tolerate innocent people being held in prison, let alone a journalist being tortured for publishing the truth about the inhuman crimes of corrupt government officials. Truth is our power. We must all help to free Julian Assange. Free, free Julian Assange. Free, free Julian Assange. Free, free Julian Assange. Thank you.
Free Assange!
Thanks, yes, absolutely agree. But free Assange.
Brilliant.